Hello and welcome to Quartzlight, your car brochure channel, and today's Saturday special where we do a roundup of the week gone by. Today we'll also be having a look at this special edition Ford Capri. Welcome back, and if you're new to Quartzlight, we review car brochures 3 times a week on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, and now we've started doing this recap on Saturdays called the Saturday Special. Anyway, back to today's episode, a recap of this week, and if you have missed it, we did actually reach 500 subscribers this week, and I did actually get a rather nice little email from the YouTube channel, or the YouTube team, I guess. So let's have a look at that now. Okay, so there we go. That's the email I received from YouTube saying, 500 subscribers been met. Always nice to reach a landmark like 500, although in reality you don't get anything from YouTube for reaching that target, but still nice to receive. Long way to go, of course, but it does actually say that you've got enough fans to fill a jumbo jet. Quite a nice little graphic, so I thought I'd show you that. Of course, we've got a long way to go yet, so if you haven't subscribed so far, please consider doing so. It certainly helps the channel a lot and gives you better content as we grow. So we also had a look at this car on Monday, didn't we? The DAF 55 Marathon, and yes, I never know there's going to be much interest in DAFs. It's not a car that was very common in the 70s, so we don't really remember too much about them, so unsurprisingly not much in the way of comments for that car, but I still like to include these. There's certainly people who have interest in DAFs, and I think they're a very pretty little car, particularly in this marathon spec, so it's like the sportier version. CVT transmissions, I know they're not popular these days, but back then it was something a little bit different. Not many makers were using CVTs, of course, and automatic transmissions late 60s, early 70s weren't very good, so they had a little bit of a market, so I do appreciate them. Okay, and that brings us nicely to the Wednesday's episode, the Fiat Uno. I was surprised actually how many comments I got, but I shouldn't have been really, because it's a small car. Lots of people could afford to buy these, so it makes sense that this was a memorable car, of course. Bit of a common theme, lots of little issues with them. Bit of a common theme seemed to be electrical issues, but overall for a cheap car they were good little runarounds. I particularly like this little graphic where it says halogen headlamps and wind cheating styling combined with an exceptionally roomy interior. And they were a nice little design, really, weren't they? One little wiper at the front, and this one was the diesel model, of course, and from the front you couldn't tell that it was the diesel. Now, the reason why I chose this particular brochure is because they're quite unusual to have a brochure specific to one model or one engine of car, this being the diesel version, but someone did mention it'd be nice to see some of the other models, and indeed, I think in the future we should come back to the Uno and see the full range. And there were some very nice models in the Uno range, in particular the turbo model was certainly a bit of a forgotten hot hatch. It was quite a good performing car, and indeed the 80s cars are an interesting period, so we certainly should see more 80s cars in the future. And then finally we get to yesterday's episode. Of course, a very common car, and a very expensive car actually, surprisingly enough, if you wanted to buy one today. But the everyday man's sporty car, I guess, from the very basic LS up to that 2.8 injection. So of course, lots of views on this, of course, and I did also mention in that episode that my mum had an earlier version, an 81 actually, a Ford Capri, a 1.3, and that was a special edition, and that's going to be what we're going to be looking at in today's episode. But kind of wanted to touch on why there is a Ford Friday. So I often get said, why Ford Fridays? Where did that come from? Well, I don't have any affiliation for Ford, but I really want to put on the channel what you as the viewer want to watch. And if you look at that graphic there, the top 5 cars in the last 28 days have all been from Ford Fridays. So they get the most views, they get the most interest. So of course, I think Ford Fridays should at least stay for a little bit longer. I certainly don't want to put people off. There's still going to be content from all the other makes and models of cars out there, but for now, Ford Friday I think is going to stay. So that takes us to today's episode for this special edition Capri. I guess this is his special edition Saturday, maybe. This particular one is the Ford Capri Cameo, and my mum did have one of these special edition Cameos with a 1.3 engine, and it really was the bottom of the range budget Capri, first released in July 81, and indeed my mum's was on an X plate and it was in this exact same colour. So it was available in just the L trim, and very, very basic, really a special edition more in price than anything. So it was it got you into a basic car, I guess, although my mum certainly didn't buy it brand new. It was a used car. And I always think in the early 80s and late 70s too, Ford had a way of making you feel like you really didn't have much money with their base spec models, but I kind of have come to really appreciate these base models. And last Friday we was looking at that very base model Sierra, and I quite like them base models. They sometimes use little features not seen on other Fords, little bits of fittings, etc. But this was really a stripped down version. I remember it didn't even have the word Cameo on it. We didn't realise it was a special edition until we looked at the logbook. But you can see straight away there's not even the side moulding down the side, which you saw on the L model. So really it was based on the L, but instead of getting extra bits of equipment, it got less. So very much an unexceptional special edition. So this model really, like I say, special edition, usually put extra things on special editions, didn't they? They seem to just taken things off to make this special edition. So like I say, no side mouldings, it had no centre console, no radio, no tachometer. But one thing it did add, a little, you can barely see it on here, a little stripe. So a little bit of a tape stripe down the back. I don't know if we can pick that up. Just about. I think that was pretty much its only feature, being a special edition. Also in that shot you can see it didn't even have a rear wiper on there. But anyway, let's open the brochure up and see what it says. So there we go, that is the rear of it. You can clearly see no wiper on there. And I said before there was no Cameo badge on, but if you can look on there, there isn't even a Ford badge or a Capri badge on there. So really stripped down, and you can see this tiny little exhaust, a 1.3, although you could actually get it in a 1.6 if you felt like you was being a bit spendy. Interior wise, kind of like looks more from the 70s really than the 80s, doesn't it? But you've got a little bit of nice little bright work on there, but obviously no headrests. Although I think you could actually fold these back seats down though to have a little bit of extra room, but very much a basic Ford. And yeah, this brochure does open funny little ways, but it says great value with a sporty look, and at the bottom there it says test drive one for the sheer fun of it. Don't worry about buying it, just test drive it for the fun. On the front also you can see the baseness of it. There's sort of no overriders on there, etc. Just got these plain black rear view mirrors, but it's still a good looking car. It's still a Capri after all, so I can understand why people did want this, and particularly you'll understand when we see the price of it. But let's have a look at some of the writing and see what features this did or didn't have. Okay, so it says here, if you're looking for a stylish sporty coupe that's got everything but the frills that go with an expensive price tag, the Capri Cameo is for you. It's no ordinary coupe either, it's a special edition Capri designed to give you just what you want at the most reasonable price possible. And plenty of choice with it. To start, you've got a choice of engines, either a 1.3 or a 1.6, with single variable Venturi carburetor and automatic choke. Then body colours come along in a dazzling choice. Diamond white with chocolate or blue trim, midnight blue with blue or tan trim, or terracotta, Venetian red, Tuscan beige, dove grey, prairie yellow or meadow green, all with chocolate or tan trim. And whichever colour you prefer, there is a distinctive tape stripe to go with it alongside the body sides. One thing I do appreciate this, and it's one thing I do appreciate about older cars, even on this very base model, you got a good colour choice. The front seats are reclining and the rear seats fold down with a split squab, so you can make the most of the remarkably roomy load compartment behind. A sport steering wheel and front spoiler, 4 halogen headlamps and servo assisted front brakes match the sporty nature of the Cameo. The entire braking system is dual line, the windscreen laminated and the rear window heated. And so you can be seen in foul weather, there are 2 bright rear fog lamps. So you see, though we've kept the price down, we haven't stinted one bit. The Cameo is stylish, sporty and great value. And then finally at the back page we do get the price. So the 1.3 is £3,995, the 1.6 £4,250. So the real thing about this Cameo is the price. That's the real selling point really. And if you compare it to the 2.8 injection at this time, I was reading that was £7,995, so a huge drop from that. Although if we look at yesterday's brochure, was looking at that 1.6 LS, that was £4,995. Yes, that was in 1983, but don't forget they dropped the prices in 83 to try and combat the hot hatches coming in, it being not such a popular car. So probably around about £4,995 was probably the price of an equivalent to an LS back then as well. So the advantage was price really. It was a base model, it was based on the L, and you know, you got what you paid for really. I do think quite amusingly at the bottom there it does say Ford gives you more, but in this case I think Ford gives you less. And that brings us to the end of today's Saturday special. The Saturday special I want to make a bit shorter than the weeks, so I think we should start wrapping it up there. But the idea is to give a bit of a recap of the week and also fit in a small brochure that's probably too small to make a full episode from. But for now we'll say thank you so much for watching. Please do like and subscribe. We'll see you very soon. Take care and goodbye, and we'll end like we did last week with some of the brochures we might see in the future.